Uncharted: The Lost Legacy is here, and as we've done with many other big releases, it's time to examine how the final game stacks up against the original reveal trailer. The Lost Legacy was first revealed at the PlayStation Experience last December, showcasing an Indian city under siege as an unknown character made her way around various guard posts. Of course, we now know it's Chloe, but for those watching the trailer at the time, her reveal as the main character was an unexpected and fun surprise. Thus, that is the first difference. In the final game, this scene occurs after a prologue chapter, so the player is fully aware that they're playing Chloe, so the cloak is dropped. It was a fun way to play with expectations and build anticipation at the time of the PlayStation Experience though. At a glance then, the visuals themselves look very similar, but there are a few changes evident at various points. As we come up on this scene here, for instance, in the demo the window acts as a shadow caster with the light projecting the metal grating pattern across the floor. Not so in the final game. Of course, there is some extra debris evident in the finished product that was added since the demo, not to mention some changes to enemy placement. Okay then, let's continue down the street.
Bloody bullies.
As we make our way down the street then, we do come up on a cutscene shortly after, which highlights another change. A subtle shadow difference. Yeah, not a big deal, but still interesting to point out. But we also see a lack of depth of field in the final game for this specific scene. There's no technical reason why that would be though, so it was likely just an artistic decision. Same deal for the clothing used by the soldiers here, which has been swapped with different uniforms. There's also a little more visible shadow jittering happening on the final game side. Look closely at the shadow being projected onto the soldier behind her, and you can see what I'm talking about. There's definitely a lot of subtle changes here in the scene, but overall it looks very, very similar. Now if we pause here, there is also a very subtle change to the number of samples used for the motion blur. It's a little more refined in the demo, but not to the degree that you would detect this while playing the game. Once we exit the cutscene then, players are once again handed control. By now it should be clear that the camera field of view is reduced in the demo, likely for cinematic purposes, while the final game provides a wider overall view of the scene. This whole section ultimately looks very similar between the two, but shortly after this bit where we see the door in the distance, things start to change. In the demo, Chloe slides under a piece of broken fence here. She comes out the other side, glances at a few ammo boxes over here on the right, and then takes cover behind this wall. Then she moves forward, takes cover behind another wall, and after a distant explosion and distraction, she then makes her way over to the door to begin lockpicking. In the final game, however, this whole sequence is extended. The hole in the fence is still here, of course, but it's been blocked. Now you have to walk around this area where a short tutorial is provided reminding players how the stealth takedown system works. It's something Naughty Dog has always excelled at, weaving tutorials smoothly into the story build-up, and it works really well here. Eventually though, you wind up in the same place as the demo. You can take cover as you did in the demo, but the whole scene plays out just a little bit differently in terms of timings and camera placement. The objective though is the same: get to the door, trigger the lockpicking minigame. Once we do that then, we dart inside, take a deep breath, and then like everybody else today, pull out your phone, which is often used in the final game for things like taking pictures. We continue then by moving down the steps where a cool volumetric light shaft awaits, showcasing guards in the following area. Then we continue down into the water, go under this tunnel, and here's where things start to deviate once again. In the demo, Chloe climbs up this ledge, peeks around the corner before climbing the stairs, and then at the top of the stairs, there's another hallway. She peeks around the corner, then proceeds through this room. In the final game, however, as you approach the top of the steps, there's now a door. Open it up, and there's an active guard wandering around here for you to dispatch. Take him out, and then make your way to the window, just like in the demo. Now when we climb out this window though, the camera still pans back into the room in both instances, but only the demo has this scripted sequence where the guards walk up to the window for a closer look. It should also be mentioned that this building isn't quite as linear as it may seem. There are at least a couple different paths through the building not shown in this demo. If you want to take out a couple guards and make your way to these steps for instance, it's totally possible. Eventually though, all paths lead to the rooftops where you witness a distant explosion here. It looks great up here, no doubt about it. The next step then is to make your way over to this ladder where you get a beautiful view of the neon lights, which have been enhanced in the final game, especially when using HDR. The distant buildings are also slightly different. Once you jump down though, a cutscene is triggered and, this is interesting, for this specific scene motion blur is disabled in the final game but fully active in the demo. It's not really clear why this would be the case though, since just about every other scene in the game uses full motion blur, but seemingly Naughty Dog felt that the scene looks better without it, so they disabled it. Likely an artistic decision rather than a performance one. There's also a light bulb that's active in the scene in the final game that's missing from the demo. Then it's time to engage in some fisticuffs, and well, here comes another spot where things deviate. In the demo, after all the enemies are dispatched, the battle ends, and here is where Chloe is revealed as the main character. The scene uses different angles and is clearly designed specifically for this reveal for the trailer. The final game, however, plays out differently, as you would expect, and then from that point, the game continues. And that's the end of the demo, so here we are. So what's the overall takeaway here then? Well, clearly there are some minor tweaks here and there. The reduction in shadow quality in spots is fascinating, while slight changes to lighting in specific instances also suggest minor artistic tweaks. Seeing as this is based on Uncharted 4's technology base though, it should come as no surprise that overall, the final game is very close to the demo, but it's still neat to see the game evolve. So, unlike the very first Uncharted 4 trailer, which was clearly pre-rendered and a step up from what we got in the final game, this trailer and the final game are mostly on par, save for the differences mentioned before. But that's the comparison. Always an interesting exercise, and great to see developers producing trailers that more accurately represent the final product these days. That's all for now though. If you enjoyed this comparison, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us over on Twitter. And until next time, this is John signing off.